Hey, just Jeff here. We're here today getting ready to change some fluids in the John Deere tractor. Right now it's winter time, we're getting on winter, so we're doing a lot of our maintenance. Today we have a special guest. It's my son Brady, and he is going to kind of go through and explain what we're going to do today. Brady?
So what we have here is a John Deere 870 tractor. One of its main jobs in the wintertime is removing snow, clearing out driveways, so we need it to be reliable in the winter. What we're doing is the basic engine service, which is fuel filter and oil change. We already checked the air filter in it, and it does not need to be changed. It's not recommended until 400 hours. The basic engine service is recommended by the manufacturer every year or 200 hours, whichever comes first. But we will open up the air filter and show you how to change it if you are wanting to change it. We're also changing the hydraulic transmission and rear axle oil. And then we're going to check the front axle and just check the condition before we check it. The 870 is also very similar to the 970 and 1070. The oil fill capacities may change, but the same procedure will be the same.
Sounds good. Well, let's get started.
Okay, pop the hood, forward. So the air filter is on this little box right here. You take this first wing nut to get the outer filter. And this is the outer air filter. So this is where it first gets drawn through. And we already checked it and it's not horrible, so we're not going to change it yet. And then there's a second wing nut in here. It's a really long one. This is your inner air filter, and it should be super clean. The idea is you shouldn't have any contaminants in here. It should be caught by the outer, and this one looks brand new. So be able to reuse that one also. Another thing, there's a dust screen here that keeps stuff out of the radiator. Looks like it's got a little bit of gook on it, so we'll have to clean this off. And then do that later. And then putting these inner ones in, you want to make sure that they seat before you put the wing nut on. You don't want to over tighten it, but you want to make sure it's snug. Also on these, they have this little, it's a centering pin to make sure that the air filter is centered in the housing. And this guy, and snug that up and you're done. So back here we have our sediment screen, this little housing right here. Comes straight off the fuel tank, goes through a rough screen just to pick up any big debris before it goes to the final filter up front. So what we did is turn this valve off, unscrewed this collar, and this whole housing comes off. and then we're gonna clean it and put it back in. So this is that screen I was talking about. We already used some brake clean to clean out the screen. You can change them if you want. We just don't have one with us to change, so we're gonna reuse this for now. So we've got a new oil filter right here. And then we're gonna be using 10W30 oil for winter, so it's thinner while it's cold. And then got a handy set of oil filter wrench pliers. They work pretty well, I'd recommend them. So next step, we have the oil draining. It's a 17mm socket, the drain plug. It was kind of hard to film, so we didn't show it, but we will show changing the oil filter, which we'll do right now. Right here we've got our oil filter, so we're gonna break this loose. I want to try to position both of them so that you don't leak any oil on the floor. Now we're gonna break this new oil open. Sometimes these seals can kind of not work well. And then what you want to do, this is your seal for your oil filter. You just take a little dab of oil on your finger, maybe, and these things will dry out. When they dry out, they crack and can leak. And for the next time you go to take these off, if you don't lubricate them, they can be really tough to get off. The O-ring can stick onto the seal. And then, as you can tell, the old filter and the new filter are different sizes, but this is an older oil filter, so they update them and change the sizes, but the part numbers are the same. And then with oil filters, you don't really want to use a wrench on them, one, because it can get damaged, and you don't want to over tighten them. So all you really need to do is get it snug, and then about a quarter turn or so, just by hand. And then, let's see. Try and clean them up. This one isn't too bad. A lot of times you'll get some that they'll have a little ledge down below that'll collect the oil and can make a bigger mess. The cool thing about these, if you have a big enough drain pan, you can drain the oil and change the filter at the same time and not have to use more than one pan. And it looks bad with oil on it, so that's why we should clean it up, but for when you start it up, you can also tell if it leaks faster. And yeah, there's your oil filter. So these fuel filters use a cartridge type filter. So it's a reusable bowl in here, and you just take the old one out and put the new one in. So we'll start by turning this valve off. And then see if we can loosen this by hand. Yep.
And how often do you need to change these, roughly?
The manufacturer recommends them different than the oil filter, but a lot of people will forget them. So I always recommend changing these every time you change the oil, and then you just know that they're in good condition.
Okay.
And then pop this guy out. And this guy is pretty grody, so it's a really good thing we changed these. And then see if we can pop this guy and seat it. Let's see if we can get it without cross-threading it. And then these bowls are supposed to be clean, or clear, I should say. And then that way you can see if your filter's getting plugged up, and if your tractor won't start, you can diagnose whether you're actually getting fuel into the filter. And then we're just gonna turn this back on. Maybe. I think so. And then sometimes these have a mechanical lift pumps, so it's possible we're gonna have to either crank on it. There's a little bleeder screw. Sometimes you have to actually crack this bolt in the injection pump to bleed the air out of it, but when we go to start up, we'll just see what we're gonna have to do. So there's two different oil fill locations on this. There's one up top in the valve cover, and there's a yellow plug down there that goes into the timing case, but this top one's usually just, with the loader, it's more convenient to get to. So, set that in there.
Now, how much is recommended?
The fill capacity for this model is just over a gallon, and I generally like to do about 3/4 and then check the dipstick and then just keep adding. That way you don't overfill it. Pretty much with every fill capacity they're over, because that's the fill capacity when they're brand new, and there's still quite a bit of oil that's inside the engine right now that you don't drain out, so you don't actually drain all that out. Let's see if I can position this to where I don't spill anything. This is kind of a small funnel.
Yeah, it is.
So, as you can see, we had too small of a funnel, made a little bit of a mess, so we had to rearm ourselves with a bigger funnel.
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
So Brady, this is a John Deere tractor, and I notice you're using John Deere oil. If you have a different tractor, say like an International Harvester or something like that, is there specific oil for them as well, or is there generic oil, or what do you recommend?
You can use generic oil. It's kind of just up to your preference of how much you want to spend on it. The name brand stuff is a lot more expensive, but it was designed to run in these engines. That's why I recommend using them.
Okay.
The same thing with the oil and fuel filters. The fuel systems, like the fuel filters are designed to run with these systems. So like the hydraulic oil filters, we're using an APA filter, so those aren't as big of a deal, but the micron ratings on the fuel filters are important. So that's why we follow those. So now we're gonna check the dipstick over on the other side. A little bit low, so we're gonna add a little bit more. And it's okay to go a little bit over before you start it, because the oil filter will take up some of the oil. Go with that, and just, the idea is you just fill it a little bit, check it, and fill it and check it until you get to the exact amount that you want.
Okay, so is it okay that the oil filter was empty? It will pump into that oil filter, or should you pre-fill the oil filter before you install it?
Generally, I don't. This one's sideways mounted, so you can't fill it anyways. But even on the bigger, like the vertical ones, I still don't do that. Another important thing is fuel filters you never want to pre-fill because you're filling unfiltered fuel into the filter. So at first startup, there could be contaminants in there that could mess a lot of stuff up. So this is where you check your hydraulic transmission and rear axle oil. So we'll hold it right here. And it's right here, right at the top of the line, so it's full.
Okay, how does it look as far as being dirty, or does it need to be changed?
I don't think it needs to be changed. Check again. Looks pretty clear. Oh, might have to add some actually. Yeah, we are gonna have to add. It's actually down here. Okay. This is your fill for the hydraulic oil. The label's gone, but this is John Deere High Guard, which is what the manufacturer calls for this. So it's up a little. We're still gonna need a bit more though. And we did keep this oil inside overnight. It's pretty cold here and it pours a lot easier when it's warmer, so it helps out quite a bit. Still gotta add quite a bit. For fluid change, we're gonna grease these grease zerks. It's a good idea to do more often usually, but at every service we do them.
You out of oil or out of grease?
No, I just took a lot.
Oh.
I don't know if there's one on the bottom there. Okay.
type of grease are you using?
Just number 2. Doesn't have to be anything special. So today we did our annual winter service. We changed the engine oil and engine oil filter. We cleaned out the primary fuel screen off the fuel tank, and then the final fuel filter we changed. We checked the inner and outer air filters, and they were good. We were going to change the hydraulic oil, but it's in really good condition, so we just checked the levels, made sure that they were full. And then we greased the loader and the 3-point hitch and the steering and suspension system. So should be pretty good now.
Should be good for the winter then.
Yep.
Well, hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button.
And comment if you have anything you want to see or any questions that you have.
That would be great.